Okay, so if you have Saturn in the 10th house, so Saturn seems to work well in the Earth houses, and the 10th house is one of the Earth houses. So let's talk a little bit about the 10th house. So the 10th house is the house of, modern astrology, we call it the house of career. And that is mostly because in the Western world, especially in the United States, I don't know about other places, but for sure in the United States, we think of our career as the most important thing in our life. And we think about it as that, like, we are our career. That's how it is in America. So the 10th house gets called the house of your career. But I mean, not everybody has that idea that your career is the most important thing in your life. If you're American and you're watching this and you do think your career is your life, that's totally fine and this will apply to you. But if you don't have like a career, you still have a 10th house. So I like to talk about the 10th house more broadly in terms of your highest aspirations. So your midheaven falls in your 10th house, usually, unless you're using a different house system. But the midheaven and the 10th house are your highest aspiration. It is the highest place of the chart, and it tells you kind of your hopes and dreams, where you want to end up. So that is your 10th house. It's like the highest dreams and potentials that you hope to reach in your life. That will be your 10th house, specifically your midheaven. And if you have Saturn there, Saturn is the planet of restriction and limitation. And as I've said in the past, he's a cranky old man who is just judging you and kind of judging you harshly, but mostly because he wants you to do well. He wants to see you succeed, and he gives you a lot of tough love. So whatever area of your chart where he's found, you're gonna have difficulties. And around the time of your Saturn return, you kind of might be feeling a little bit beat up by life. So I put together a series of quotes, and I hope they can help you get through your Saturn return if you're having a hard time. This is similar to my Saturn return. Mine is in the first house. This one's in the 10th house. It's your other personification into the world. So this house is important to me. So I tried to do my best. So here's the first quote. It said, "My dad had limitations. That's what my good-hearted mom always told us. He had limitations, but he meant no harm. It was kind of hard to say, but he did do harm." Gillian Flynn said that in Gone Girl. So the reason why I decided to talk about the father and bringing restriction and limitation is because this reminded me of people sometimes with Saturn in the 10th house could have had a difficult relationship with their father. And this isn't always the case, but in case it is the case for you, it is a good time to think about your relationship to either your father or the more structured parent, the parent that kind of taught you the rules and regulations and was harder, the disciplinarian parent. So that doesn't have to be your dad or the male parental role. It could be a female, but traditionally it is the male in traditional astrology. So if you have had a difficult relationship with your parent, with your father, the time of your Saturn return is a good time to really think about the relationship that you have with each other and kind of what you've taken from your dad to form the person that you are. It's a great time to really think about that and just kind of heal wounds if there are wounds in that relationship and move on, kind of dust yourself off. This would be a great time to do that. So the next quote is, "There is only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, the fear of failure." Paulo Coelho said that in The Alchemist. And this is where it really gets into Saturn in the 10th house territory. So people with Saturn in the 10th house have this huge burden of all their life. They've wanted to do great things, but they're very afraid to fail. And the thing is that whenever you want to do anything outstanding in life or anything worth doing, you're going to have to fail. The quicker you learn to fail, the faster that you'll succeed at anything. So it's like if you wanted to learn to walk, but you were afraid to fall. So instead you're just gonna crawl for the rest of your life. That way you'll never fall. Yeah, you'll never fall, but you'll never walk either. So that's kind of the whole situation with a person with Saturn in the 10th house. They don't want to fail, but in their not failing, they end up never doing anything because they're afraid to fail. So by the time your Saturn return comes along, it really, I mean, if you're barely learning to fail by the time you're 30, that's not good. I will tell you, I have Saturn in the first house. It's a kind of similar vibe. So I was also afraid of failure all my life, and I didn't do a lot of things because I was afraid to fail. I would only do things that were easy for me. That way I wouldn't have to fail. It wouldn't be a big deal. So I definitely relate, but in the past like year or so, I've been trying to fast track my failures so that it no longer stings. So the faster that you can get to failing, the faster that you'll succeed, Saturn in the 10th house. So let's move on to the next quote. The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that. So this quote is about your legacy that you leave in life. So the 10th house being the height of your achievements in this life also becomes a house of kind of your legacy. That is what you're going to leave behind. That idea that people are going to have of you is going to come from the 10th house. So around the time of your Saturn return, by that time, you might want to start making sure that you are comfortable and confident in the legacy that you're going to be leaving behind. Kind of, what are you putting out there into the world that is coming from you, and are you proud of it? Are you happy with what you're doing? And if the answer is no, if you're still not putting things out there and you're not really putting yourself out there and doing something that you're proud of, then do what I did. Fast track your failure, get comfortable with failing, and along that path of just having these failures, you're going to succeed eventually. It's just a matter of time. So like that analogy of that little kid who is afraid of falling, so he just doesn't want to get up. Just get up. Like, you're going to fall, but you're going to learn to walk. And once you learn to walk, then it's nothing but up from there. Okay, so definitely by the time of your Saturn return, you have to work on that. Make sure that your life is one that has been lived well and that you've made some difference, because you definitely want to do that. Saturn in the 10th house, you definitely want to do big things and make a difference in this life. So work on it, work at it. The next one is, it is amazing what you can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. And Harry S. Truman said that. This one reminded me a lot of Saturn in the 10th house too, because Saturn in the 10th house, people want to accomplish such great things. So this isn't like being like, oh, you want to get the credit for everything. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm actually saying is, because you guys are so afraid of failure, I think that what you should do is kind of separate yourself from whatever project it is that you're afraid of doing, so that if it fails, then you won't feel so personally victimized by the failure. So try to, either, if you could do something anonymously, like if you're a writer, say, and you want to submit to a journal, but you're very afraid of failure, why don't you submit it under a pseudonym? Like, you don't have to submit it under your name, so that, you know, if it fails, like, who cares? It was just John Doe's poem, like, who cares, you know? Because rejection does hurt. And eventually you will get comfortable with putting things out under your own name, but until you are, like, don't worry about it. Just distance yourself from the project itself so that it doesn't hurt so much if it doesn't succeed. But just know that you're still gonna have to get those failures under your belt. So whether it's under a pseudonym or your own name, you're gonna have to learn to fail so that you are able to succeed and take on bigger projects that are going to scare you. So if you're not doing things that are scaring you, that means you're not doing anything in your life. So don't forget that. So the next quote is, it shouldn't be easy to be amazing. Then everything would be. It's the things you fight for and struggle with before earning that have the greatest worth. When something's difficult to come by, you'll do that much more to make sure it's even harder or impossible to lose. Sarah Dessen said that. This reminded me a lot of Saturn in the 10th house, because you guys are going to struggle so much to really be that amazing person that you want to be, that you want to present to the world, that has accomplished those like heights of your career, or even if it's not a career, maybe you want to be like the best, most successful mom that moms, the crap out of her kids. Like, you want to be the mommiest mom of them all. Whatever it is that you want to do, you want to do it, you want to be the best at it. So you can do that, but it's going to be difficult because you have Saturn there. But Saturn is the type of guy that he's making things hard for you so that you can learn the trade. So you're going to get really good at it. Whatever it is that you want to do, you're going to get good at it. Just make sure that you're actually putting in the work. And for you, the work is putting yourself out there. Learn to put yourself out there. Like I've said, I'm going to say it a million times. Learn to fail, and the rest is going to be cake. Learn to fail. Like, do it so much that it doesn't hurt anymore. This reminds me of this book that I read by Stephen King called On Writing, where he talked about how many rejection letters he had to get. And after reading it, I realized I was just like, it was just part of the process. And through that book, he talks a lot about how it's just part of being a writer. You have to get so many rejection letters so that it makes you happier. The closer you get to 100 to 200, you know that you're closer to getting that yes, that approval letter. Okay, so that's how it is for you, but with whatever project, not just writing, but it could also be writing. Okay, the last quote is, "Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly." Robert F. Kennedy said that. That's more of the same. You're going to achieve great things in this life only if you stop being afraid of failure. Really put yourself out there and just see what happens, you know, because you only get one life. You get a day every single day though. So every single day, make sure that you're putting yourself closer and closer to being able to put yourself out there in the way that you best want to, okay? So I hope these quotes were helpful, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.